Hello, and welcome to Essential Alchemy. Alchemy is defined as the power or process that changes or transforms something in a mysterious or impressive way. My hope is that the information in this podcast can help you transform your mood, your energy, physical health, or even connect some dots to help you shift your mental or emotional state. I'm your host, Jodi Cohen, a best-selling author, award-winning journalist, functional practitioner, lifelong learner, and founder of Vibrant Blue Oils, a company that sells proprietary blends of high-quality organic or wild-crafted essential oil remedies designed to help you return to your ideal mental, physical, and emotional state. You can find out more about me and my company at vibrantblueoils.com. And with that, let's get started with today's episode.
Hi, I'm Jodi Cohen, your host, and I'm so excited to talk about nervous system regulation and all that it impacts, including love and money, with my very dear, talented friend, Kate Northrup, who is an entrepreneur, best-selling author, mother, and she's built a multimedia digital platform called The Origin Company that reaches hundreds of thousands globally. Like me, Kate is committed to supporting ambitious women to light up the world without burning themselves out. Kate teaches data and soul-driven time and energy management practices that result in saving time, making more money, experiencing less stress, and receiving love. Welcome.
Thanks. Thanks, Jodi. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited to talk about your approach to kind of nervous system regulation is more obviously it's physical health, but it's really about kind of how you interact in the world. And I'm so curious, how did you kind of discover this and get started with this?
Well, it was actually through our fellow trust member indirectly. So what happened is I was part of a mastermind with Raw Goddess. I don't know if you know Raw, but she's phenomenal. At one of our mastermind retreats, she just handed me this book and she was like, I feel like you need this book. And I read the title of the book and I was like, whoa. And the book title was Patriarchy Stress Disorder. And I had this instant knowing that this book contained something very important for me in my personal work and in my professional work. And it's by Dr. Valerie Rain, who we both know from the Trust. And I inhaled the book and started telling absolutely everyone. And it is about the nervous system. And it is about the way that our personal traumas and our ancestral traumas and our collective traumas, especially as women living in a patriarchy, impact our nervous system and our ability to go for our big dreams. And so Dr. Valerie Rain is the first person who I learned about this from. And then I also studied the work of Milagros Phillips, who is the race healer. And she talks a lot about ancestral trauma and epigenetics, more in the realm of race. Powerful, powerful work. And then I've gone on to just do a bunch of certifications, read every book under the sun. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with the nervous system. It has made such a profound difference in my life in terms of in my marriage, in my parenting, in my ability to run our business, which is a multi-seven-figure company, without burning out. And so I tell anyone who will listen.
Yeah, and let's delve into that a little bit more, because I talk a lot about kind of how physically your nervous system, when your body doesn't feel safe, it really prioritizes survival and shuts down kind of healing. Can you talk a little bit about emotionally how when you don't feel safe, that impacts your ability to receive love, to receive money, everything?
Yeah. So my understanding is that, and I love talking to somebody like you about this, who also is such a student and steward of the nervous system. So please interject if there's anything that I'm either getting wrong or that you want to add. And so my understanding and my experience is that our nervous system has a thermostat, and that thermostat is set according to mostly the environment we were raised in, and not in terms of the facts of the environment. So I was raised by two doctors in a small town in Maine. On the surface, everything looked pretty perfect. However, the feeling of what was going on in my household was really different than the content. Like what was happening is really different than what it felt like. Our nervous system is a network of neurons that includes our brain and our spinal cord and the vagus nerve and all the whole body. There's nothing in our body that our nervous system does not impact. And those neurons communicate through electric impulses. And another way of saying electricity is saying energy. It is the same thing. Our entire body is run on electricity. It is the very mechanism by which we are alive. When someone's heart stops beating, how do we resuscitate them? We pump them with electricity to get the life force going again. And so our nervous system speaks the language of energy, which means how did it feel? And so our bodies are storing all these experiences that we didn't necessarily have the capacity, the support, or the strategies to fully metabolize in the moment. And so they get stored because our body has no sense of time. And so there are parts of us all stuck throughout our entire body in time at those stressful moments. And our nervous system wants to keep its thermostat set at a narrow band of experience that matches what is familiar. And what is familiar, what I mean by that is the energetic vibe of what it felt like to be us growing up. Like what our nervous system learned about what it means to be alive and be human is how our nervous system developed. So our nervous system imprints are essentially a perfect reflection of what the energy was like in our childhood home. And so what will happen is our nervous systems will recreate that energetic vibe forever in our adult lives, because according to the nervous system, that which is unfamiliar is unsafe. So we can have two kinds of stress. And those stresses are negative stress, terrible things that happen, and positive stress, wonderful things that can happen. But the thing is, all of our desires, like for loving relationships and romance, like for vibrant health, like for more money and abundance, successful businesses, healthy parenting, all the things we desire for the most part are things that we've not experienced before. There are also things that our ancestors didn't experience, and there are also things that many times our family who's alive and our community has not experienced. So our nervous system is going to do anything it can to prevent us from experiencing the things that we desire, because it thinks that we are unsafe when something new is happening to us. Which is why, despite trying to change our thoughts and change our behavior, we often find ourselves in the same reality over and over and over again with just different details, but like same church, different pew. And so that's how I like to explain why sometimes it can feel really hard to get what we want, because our nervous system is doing everything it possibly can to prevent that from happening.
One quote that I love from you is, "We'll pick the familiar hell over the unfamiliar heaven."
Yeah, the nervous system will. And I think it was Britt Frank who originally said that. I think I should go look it up.
Yeah.
But it struck me so much because it's so true. We want all these things, and our past band of experience, it doesn't like feel good, but it feels like home. And we will always by default unconsciously gravitate to what feels like home, even if it's not what we want.
Yes. And one of the things that I love about you and all of your programs is that you teach people how to reset that so that they don't need to work so hard, so that they can start receiving. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, because then it's like, okay, well, great. This lady Kate told me that my nervous system is going to prevent me from having everything I want. Awesome. So inspiring.
No, she teaches you how to reset it. Recalibrate.
Exactly. So to know that that is our default unconscious, and most people, no one told them about the nervous system. I didn't learn about this till I was 38, and I grew up in an extraordinarily active household in terms of personal and spiritual and health development. So like if I didn't know, nobody knows.
Yeah.
So I'm really wanting folks to understand that this is a missing link. And it is also the root cause of the vast majority of terrible behavior going on in the world. If we look at what's going on behind war and abuse and addiction, it's trauma.
Yes.
Where does trauma live? In the nervous system. So if we all learned what it is that you are teaching and what it is that I am teaching, I believe, in fact, I know that we would heal the major problems that ail us as a human race. So this is like
I agree.
really, really important.
I 100% agree with what you're saying about the nervous system. I think it's the nervous system, the amygdala, and then the heart. And when you get those three in alignment, you can't be grateful and loving and also be hateful and hurting.
You cannot feel safe and hurt somebody at the same time. At least not on purpose. And, of course, we're always going to hurt people, but not like physically. And sometimes we say something by accident, but the repair is very powerful. And so circling back to how we reset it, what we are discussing now is repair. We have wounding. We have wounding from any number of things. And the layers that impact our nervous system are traumas that are like big T traumas that happen to us, tremendous losses, divorce, really awful things. And then little T traumas that maybe aren't like those major, major things, but they're, being bullied at school could be a big T trauma, a little T trauma. We don't know. We can't judge what's traumatic to other people. That's not the game. But what we do know is that the things that we experienced imprint our nervous system. And then we also know through the study of epigenetics that the things our ancestors experienced impact our nervous system. And our thermostat setting is also set by our ancestors' experiences, most of which we will never know about. And then we have the collective imprinting that happens from other people when we watch the world, the media, our communities. When stuff happens to other people who we identify with that we think is scary, our bodies do not believe the lie of separation. Our bodies register that as though it happened to us.
Yes.
And so it's so important to understand that. And then we can say like, okay, so I have these layers of wounding. What do I do about it? Well, not to overly simplify, but basically you just need to learn how to help your body feel safe. So when you can learn to signal safety and speak the language of your nervous system, which is not thought, it is not changing your beliefs. You cannot think your way out of feeling. You
Yes.
cannot think your way out of a way your body feels. You have to feel your way out of it. And so what we can do is we practice ways to signal safety in our nervous system. And then I love that you also bring in the amygdala and the heart, because when we combine those things, it is very powerful. And when we can signal that we are safe, our body relaxes in the parasympathetic and it can expand what I call our range of resonance or our range of capacity or our range of tolerance or our range of regulation, meaning we now have a greater ability for life to come washing over us,
Yes.
both negative stresses and positive stresses, and to approach them and meet them with a healthy, conscious response, as opposed to an unconscious reactivity that just recreates wounding after wounding after wounding in ourselves and in others. And so the name of the game is learn how to signal safety to your nervous system and practice it over and over and over again. Know how to notice the signs of dysregulation and then learn how to regulate yourself as you're expanding your reality so that you can go beyond living in this narrow band that's just totally based on safety and what your ancestors experienced.
And let's talk a little bit about how sometimes really good things can make you really overwhelmed and terrified and anxious. Success in my business, it's like I'm in a very happy relationship, and there are times when I don't know what's wrong with me. It's almost like I accidentally sabotage, or I start to doubt, or it's like that old program starts to creep in.
Yes. So here's a practical example. I know you love going to Jackson Hole. I was in Jackson Hole this summer, and my husband and I were staying at the most expensive hotel we've ever been to. We had just had a launch that was our biggest launch in our entire careers. So we had more money in the bank than we'd ever had before. Our children were safe and happy. We're staying at this spectacular hotel. It is a gorgeous crystal blue day in the Tetons. And I'm sitting next to him at the pool. And he's like, "What is going on with you? I can literally feel your energy. Like, what is happening?" And what was happening inside myself is I was in deep judgment and criticism of my husband, like deep, toxic, awful. And I said to him, "I am having an experience right now. And I just need you to know it has nothing to do with you. And I'm going to excuse myself and go handle it. And I'll come back." So I left the pool and
Can I just commend you? Like, that is what happens to all of us. Whenever we're having a conflict, so much of it is us. So congratulations
thank
for
you.
being regulated enough to not pick the fight.
Well, we've had some practice and some years of therapy. So with wonderful therapists who understand the nervous system and our unconscious patterns. So I'm like, okay, this couldn't possibly like, yeah, sure, my husband's not perfect, but like the level of toxins in my thoughts was like, oh, this is so gross. So I go to the bathroom in our hotel. I lie on the bathroom floor. And, that was partially just like grounding myself. And actually, in that moment, I didn't specifically do a nervous system regulating process, but I did pray. And for myself, that's one of my practices. And so
Mine as well.
yeah, I laid on the floor of the bathroom, which always is like where the best stuff happens.
Oh yeah, or the
And I
shower.
just talked to God. And
Yeah.
I just said, like, "Hey, this is awful. Like, what's happening inside me is awful. It feels like I'm torturing myself. Basically, like, I need help. Make it stop." And I really know that when we can turn something over to a force greater than ourselves, we don't feel so alone. Everybody I know who's like a spiritual teacher who talks to the other realms, they say that all of our guides, all of the angels, they are here at all times, but they can only help us if we ask. Like, we have to ask. And so asking for me is one of my practices. So I just ask for help. And what I received was so profound. And I burst into tears, which is actually very regulating for the nervous system. It releases all of the excess estrogen and all of these stress hormones. So having a good cry is so good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened. And then I really, really heard from inside, you are experiencing something that is something you have only ever dreamed of. And because it is unfamiliar, your body feels unsafe. So it has gone into a fight response, which when we go into judgment and criticism, it is a fight response. So had gone into a fight response because I was experiencing my current level of positive stress, of experiencing a level of abundance and joy and connection I'd never had before. And people in my lineage haven't had it before. Like, I'm going first. And it felt terrifying. And so unconsciously, I was in an internal fight with my husband, and it was awful. And so as soon as I could have the good cry and recognize, oh, I'm dysregulated. That's as simple as it comes. I'm just dysregulated. I've gone outside my range of regulation, and now I am in a sympathetic fight response. And so then I was able to really feel gravity on my body, have a good cry, go swim in the pool, get into my body, feel my five senses. Because if I was an antelope on the Serengeti plain, getting right? Like getting chased by a lion or some other kind of animal. Maybe I'm a tiger and like I would fight with the lion, right? To use a fight
Yeah.
response. And then like I win. Let's say I'm the tiger and I win. I don't know if that would actually happen, but so I win, the lion's out.
You
What
survive.
No, I survive, right? So what would happen is in an animal, which we are, that tiger would then shake.
Yes. For
They
anyone that walks the dogs, the dogs bark at another dog.
Yes.
They do. They shake. They're
They do this shake
recovering.
thing, right? It also happened to me after I gave birth both times. My whole body just involuntarily shook.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is happening in that moment? What's happening is our biology is so beautifully wired to metabolize all the stress hormones. Because if you have the capacity to stand and shake, or to have a good cry, or to do a bilateral oppositional rhythmic movement, these are so many things that are regulating, or do EFT tapping or EMDR or swipe on some essential oils, right? If you have the capacity to do that, you are safe. And so you're updating your body to say, hey, the threat has passed. We are safe now. And that was what I did on the bathroom floor, and then getting in the pool, getting in my body, because if I have enough capacity and bandwidth to be embodied and in my somatic experience of my five senses, there's not a threat. So I can just let my body know, like, hey, staying at a fancy hotel with your wonderful husband is not a threat. Like, you are
Yeah.
actually safe right now. And then we just had like the most glorious rest of our vacation and reached a level of connection and joy that we had not experienced before, but that was only available because I could recognize I'm dysregulated and my body doesn't feel safe. And I knew what to do about it in that moment instead of like trying to take my husband out.
Right. And one of the things I wanted to add, what you were saying about praying, it's interesting. I'm really obsessed with limbic system retraining, which is that
Mm.
and smell. But Gupta has a program. And one of the things
Oh,
that
I just heard about it.
it's amazing. He talks about this idea of when you're trying to regulate, when you recognize those intrusive thoughts or negative patterns that are kind of popping up. One of his things he says is to kind of imagine that there's someone there that's supporting and loving you. And it can be God, it can be your pet, it can be
Yes.
your husband, it could be any supportive person. And I've been noodling that all morning. And what I really think it is it's not just regulating your nervous system, it's feeling safe,
It
and
is.
and if the higher power makes you feel safe, if your best friend, if your dog, if being in nature, whatever makes you feel safe, that, like it's almost like if you want to lose weight, you can change your diet and you can exercise, or you could do both, at the same time.
Mm.
Other thing that he said that I really loved is movement, that it's hard to make a change
Yes.
when you're standing still. So like
It
getting in
really
the
is.
pool and you were moving, like all these things that we can do to kind of keep the momentum going towards regulation and change.
Yeah, I love that. And there are times, depending on which end of the spectrum of dysregulation we go into, there's the hypo end of the spectrum and the hyper end of the
Yes.
spectrum. So the hypo is when we get into stasis and we like can't get ourselves going and we're just in
Functional
bed
freeze.
with the functional freeze. We're in bed with the covers over our head, or we're just kind of like, it's subtle, like we're overwhelmed, we can't prioritize, we can't like get going on our day. So that's the hypo response. It's more of a depressive end of the spectrum of dysregulation. Then there's the hyper response, which is more of the anxious end of the spectrum when we're dysregulated and we're just taking a bunch of random action, but it's like not necessarily getting us the result. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like actually really scared, but what I think I need to do is clean the bathroom grout with a toothbrush, like that sort of thing. I tend to be more of on the hyper end of things.
As do I, which
As
is
do many people,
yeah.
especially because in our society, responding to anything with action and especially massive action is really celebrated. But actually, it can be a sign of when I first, okay. So going back to patriarchy stress disorder, around that time, I also read a quote on Erica Chitty Cohen's Instagram. And I don't know if you know her, but she's the founder of Loom, which is a maternal wellness company in Los Angeles. She's just incredible. She just posted on Instagram, productivity is a trauma response. And it was like,
You know what? When Max died, I decided I'm like, I'm going to be a workaholic so I don't have to be an alcoholic.
exactly.
It serves a purpose until you're able, because
It does.
feeling so intense. And that's part of, I think a lot of us are kind of stuck in fight or flight because like the anger, the grief, the
Mhm,
sadness is running in the
mhm,
background. And as
mhm.
women, we don't want to feel them. So we
Totally.
just suppress them, but it's almost like the tabs in our computer are all open. So even though
Yes.
we're not leaning into it, they're kind of silently running. And so we just stay so busy so that we're so tired, so we don't need to feel.
100%. I'm so glad you said that because we think like, oh, I'm not resting and I'm not slowing down because I have too much to do. No, you're not resting and you're not slowing down because you don't want to feel because it's so uncomfortable. I mean,
It's so
in that
uncomfortable.
moment, like, and on the bathroom floor, even though that was kind of different, what came up was so much grief about my relationship with the masculine and the imprinting I've had around not being met and not being supported and not being provided for by the healthy masculine, like it was really sad and painful. And I just stayed with that part because it was a lot of leftover feelings that just needed to be felt. I didn't need to really get too much into the story of it, but part of what we can do is just be with the parts of ourselves that need witnessing in their grief, in their anger, in their fear, so that we can, like you said, close that tab. It's like we have this browser window open with like 3 million tabs from all the stressful situations that we didn't metabolize because any number of reasons. We were shamed for our emotions. We would, blah, 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 blah. So every time we lean in and have a good cry, go for a run, have a good laugh, have an orgasm, do breath work. Movement, sound, breath, tears, and laughter are 5 of my go-tos because they close those stress tabs in my energetic and nervous system browser and it frees up capacity.
Well, all of the things you mentioned, like EMDR, tapping, all of these things, I think the problem that people have, when we don't know what to do, we do nothing. I think they're afraid to have to relive it and feel it again. And that's actually why I like oils. I think there are ways that you can process it and release it without having to go. It's almost like watching the movie through the window. You
Yes.
don't need to jump into the frame and feel that all over again. You just need to observe. And it
Mm,
helps, if you pray or if you think of your best friend,
yeah.
if you smell something, because smell is the easiest way into the brain. There are so many ways to you don't need to be afraid to feel those uncomfortable feelings. You can just witness them and release them.
Yes, you really can. You really can. And it's also, we live in such a fixing society. So, one of the things that's been really helpful for me is because I think parts work, internal family systems work, is very related to nervous system regulation. And the way I think about it is that all these stressful moments that created our nervous system thermostat are all of our parts. And if anybody is not familiar with internal family systems work, is basically the idea, it's a school of therapy. And the idea is we have all these different parts of us that are taking the lead at various times. And so it's not really our conscious adult self often that's running the show. It will be a part. And we have protective parts and we have defender parts and we have little child parts. And so one of the things that I do is I work with I've been doing this long enough and I did some training around it. I'm not a therapist, but I certainly know enough to facilitate for myself and in my group programs. So every time I do that, what's been so helpful for me in our society that's like always about like, how can I fix that? I have to do something about it. It's been so relaxing to realize that all I need to do is go in and witness the part and just let her say what she needs to say or show me what she needs to show me. And that's it. Like, I don't have to make it better for her. I don't have to explain it away. I don't have to whatever. And it really helps me as a mom because, last night, my daughter Ruby, she's 5. Last week, we went away on a trip, just the two of us, and we missed a day of school. She didn't realize, mostly that's great with her. She'd prefer not to go. But we missed a big day at school, which was the cultural fair, where you go around to all these different booths that the parents set up. I live in Miami, so 75% of the population is not from the United States. So it's really cool at the cultural fair because it's the parents from Hungary and Switzerland and Venezuela and Argentina and Colombia and all the way. So anyway, she missed the cultural fair and she was hearing about it from her older sister who went. And last night at bedtime, she was in tears and she was like, Mama, I missed the cultural fair and I didn't get to go and I didn't get to get the flags and and she's just like bereft about it. And I just was like, yeah, that's sad. I can see why that would be sad for you. And I could just hold her and let her cry. Whereas I feel like the conditioning is that I would try to talk her out of it and explain like, oh, but we got to go on this other trip that was really special that your sis, and you'll get to go to the cultural fair next year. And oh, it's not, we can get you other flags. No, it's just like, yeah, babe, that's sad. It's okay to be sad. And we just were there. For us emotionally, all of us have that little 5-year-old who's crying about something as small as the cultural fair or as giant as abuse or abandonment. And those parts don't need to be fixed. They need to be witnessed. So I'm so glad you said the piece about like, we don't have to like dive full in and relive the story. We can just witness and that's it.
Well, it's interesting so my parasympathetic blend, I basically call it, wait till you get to the teenage years. It's really fun. It's like they're constantly on a roller coaster. And here's the deal. You can't get on the roller coaster with them because
Totally.
then it's like all downhill. So my daughter, normal teenage stuff. And the more I could regulate myself, the more I was able to do exactly that. Like just hear her. The other trick is I noticed if I sat on the floor, if I was lower than her, then that kind of calmed her down.
That's great. Okay, I love
Yeah, but
that.
there's a lot of research on that, but just kind of like submitting and like, tell me more. And I think
Right.
as women, that's part of it is that once, like you're so upset, you call your best friend, you tell them the whole story. They just say, I'm so sorry that sucks. And you feel better.
You do. You totally do. You
Yeah.
just need to be witnessed
Yes.
because I think, this is just coming to me right now, but I think part of the pain of our experiences is feeling alone.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and so what our bodies need on some level, like probably from a co-regulation perspective and a mirror
Yeah.
neuron perspective, is just simply the feeling of I'm not alone. I've been witnessed, I've been seen, and now I feel safe because I'm not alone.
And that's a perfect tie into your program where people can feel completely supported and have community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Of course. So one of the most easy, I hate to use the word hacks, but quite frankly, this is a hack. This is a nervous system hack. Being in positive, safe community. It is one of the easiest ways to heal and expand your capacity without really having to do anything other than show up. Now, if you do the work, it really helps. But
Yeah.
there are so many people who just heal and expand by showing up for my live programs, even if they're listening to the replay. So I teach 2 times a year, a free workshop, and it's only 2 times a year just because it takes a lot of energy, but I love it. And so this one coming up, I always change it a little bit. This one's called Wide Receiver. And one of the things we know about the nervous system, and you and I were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, is that we can only receive what feels safe. And what feels safe is going to be based on our previous experience, which is why a lot of us block the abundance and the love and the blessings that are actually right there available to us, but we have closed off our receptor sites. What we know actually now, and I'm so excited to get into more of the science about this in the workshop, but what we know, we used to think like I'm part of the scientific community, but anyway, people,
Sure.
I am. So we used to think that receptor sites in the body were like a lock and a key, where it was like, okay, so I've got this hole and I've got the right size key and we're going to get in there. And then that receptor site, whether it's with a protein or an amino acid or whatever, it'll go in there. What we now know is that receptor sites are vibrational. And so it's energetic. It's like a vibrational frequency match that allows things to get matched up to open up the receptor site, to open up parts of your body to receive. So it's the same thing physiologically as it is energetically, as within, so without. And what we know is that we have to learn to feel safe to receive more financially and otherwise. Otherwise, we will unconsciously keep a ceiling on our receptivity. And our receptivity, meaning certainly our income, but also our ability to actually experience abundance. Because having a lot of money is not the same thing as experiencing abundance. I know plenty of people who have tons of money who constantly feel like it's not enough. Is
Or
it
they're
because they're
rising
terrible
and
people?
they don't spend it.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. Or they hoard it.
Yeah.
Why? They don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And so, what this workshop does is it allows you to take the practical steps in those 3 days totally for free to open your capacity to receive. And always in my live workshops, people experience incredible money miracles. It happens every time. And it is a freaking mystery. And I love it so much because when we put loving, caring, safe attention on our money, it shows up for us in ways that we couldn't have possibly orchestrated on a human level. So we tap into the practical, we tap into the magical, we tap into the emotional, the energetic, the physical. It's a full holistic financial health workshop.
You know, it's so funny. I'm remembering when I was in grad school, there was a trip to Japan that looked amazing. A bunch of my friends were planning it, and it was like $3,000. And I remember sitting in the meeting thinking, this is amazing. I guess I'm going to have to find some way to manifest $3,000. And I had applied, I won an award, and a journalism award. I had applied for something, and it was the exact amount of the trip. And I was like, this is so perfect. Look, I'm supposed to go.
There it is.
One of the best months of my life. But yeah,
That's so cool.
no, but I think that potential is possible for everyone. And I was telling you before we got on, like I had been divorced since 2018, had wanted to be in relation and started working on receiving. I was doing it with fascia oil on the back of my heart and heart on the front, and then regulating the nervous system. And then once I was kind of open to receive, this amazing person showed up.
Yep.
So I wonder how many of us are kind of walking through life with all these opportunities that like want to kind of support us.
Yeah, totally. They're everywhere and they're infinite. So also just know that like you definitely missed opportunities and there's plenty more where that came from.
Exactly.
You're never going to dry up.
Exactly. Tell people how they can find out more about your program.
Yeah. So if you go to katenorthrup.com/wide, you will be able to just get yourself signed up totally for free. Join in. If you can't come live, you'll get the replays, but there is an extra magic and an extra transmission that happens when you come live.
Amazing. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd like to share?
Oh my goodness. I mean, we could talk about anything, but I will just say this. One thing that I think really screws us up about money is conflating our inherent worth with our net worth. And having this idea in our society that more money makes you more valuable, or that like less money makes you more spiritual. These things are super ingrained. So I just wanted to say in closing that our worth is inherent and infinite and ineffable. There's nothing we could ever do to become more worthy. There's nothing we could ever do to become less worthy. Our worth just is. And then anything we do in the material world is just kind of a game we're playing while we're here in this incarnation. And I see so many people hold themselves back by conflating their worth with how much money they make. And I just wanted to mention that.
Well, the other thing I wanted to ask you, you were telling me that you're an oil fan and that people talk a little bit about the oils and how you use them in your program.
Yeah, so I know about the science behind the olfactory system and the way that essential oils work as a quickening agent to be able to help us to access a deeper state of nervous system regulation and a deeper state of change and transformation. And I love how you were explaining, for example, how you can use oils to be able to heal traumas without like diving all the way into the trauma, because there's a way in which the essences of the plant, and this gets me whole going on the metaphors of nature and the way nature is like our greatest healer, and the vibrations of nature and the frequency just brings us home. It's just so beautiful. But anyway, the essential oils and their frequencies allow us to feel safe. And my theory on that is because when we connect with nature, which is our true nature, we are home. And so we feel safe. And so we created a relaxed money blend that combines all of these different essential oils that are good for abundance or passion and activating the second chakra or calming and relaxation into this gorgeous relaxed money blend. And everyone who joins the paid program Relax Money gets the blend in the mail so they can use it as a quickening agent along with the practices that we're doing. Because as you said, when you combine and roll that over your heart, and then it's going right to your amygdala and you're doing a nervous system regulating practice at the same time, it just enhances all the effects.
When, it's interesting, smell is the most important scent to survival.
Yeah.
You smell water, you smell food, you smell predator odor. When you age and you lose your sense of smell, you can die from eating like spoiled food. And it also, like, in terms of the blood-brain barrier, like, I totally believe I'm completely in line with you with kind of energetic resonance.
Yeah.
But the lipids are so small, they can actually, the nasal passageways where the blood-brain barrier is the thinnest, like, it's really hard to get remedies into the brain. So smelling things goes directly to the brain and goes to the amygdala and sends that signal, you are safe.
That is so
Yeah.
cool.
I love it when smart people kind of stumble upon the same thing that I
Isn't that cool? I know. It's like, oh, we must be right.
we must be right. Well, at least we know it works for us.
It totally works for us. Yeah.
Okay, so remind people again where they can find you and where they can find your program.
Yes. So if you head over to katenorthrup.com/wide, you'll be able to access the free workshop, and then that will take you to inviting you to the paid program if it resonates. So katenorthrup.com/wide is the best place to go. You can also head over to Instagram. I'm at Kate Northrup. That's the place I'm the most active online. And I do send out a weekly dispatch, which is my best tips on healing your relationship with money, delivered to you weekly. So you can sign up for that too.
And your Instagram's adorable. Your children are so cute. They look like little mini yous.
They're pretty great. My kids are great.
Yeah, no, they are. Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Thanks, Jodi. This was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope this podcast empowered you with some useful information and takeaways. If you liked this episode, please consider sharing a positive review or subscribing. I would also love to offer you my free parasympathetic toolkit as a gift just for listening. It will teach you how to activate the most important nerve in your body to turn on your ability to heal. This free toolkit includes a checklist, a video, and a detailed guide. If this podcast prompted any questions, you can always find answers at my blog at vibrantblueoils.com or my book, Essential Oils to Boost the Brain and Heal the Body. Until next time, wishing you vibrant health.